Hello and welcome to my show, The Awakening, here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Solo Network. The information and opinions expressed on this show are just that, the opinions of the individual speaking based on their individual personal experience. They are not intended to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. So, you know the pain and the struggles that divorcing men and women go through? Well, I help calm that, and all while working with their attorney. By doing all of this, we are able to save them thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars in their divorce. Hello, my name is Tina Huggins. I'm your divorce coach specialist, divorce planning specialist, restorative family mediator, and conflictual co-parenting coach. And today, I'm graced with the beautiful Destiny Runyon with me today. And so Destiny is a certified emotional health coach and is the proud owner of Sound Mind Coaching. Sound Mind Coaching is a coaching practice designed to support individuals on their journey to emotional health and well-being. With a deep commitment to creating a safe space for healing, Destiny looks forward to walking alongside clients as they uncover false beliefs, repair past hurts, and step confidently into their true identities. So welcome, Destiny. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So as I was reading through everything, Destiny had talked, and I had talked about this, but Destiny's path that she likes to take her clients down is a very spiritual path. She likes to walk alongside, as it kind of comes out in your information, is to walk alongside Jesus as they go through their healing practice. Is that kind of the way you see all of that, Destiny?
Yeah, so I focus a lot on trauma recovery and just healing past wounds. And from my experience, I have my own personal story and my own personal struggles that led me to where I am today. And that's why I'm very passionate about it, is because it's something I too have walked out. And I've seen how it's impacted me as a person. And honestly, it's helped me to become a better parent, which is one of the reasons why I do it, is just because I don't want the things that I've been through to affect my children. And so for me, Jesus, faith, honestly, it's a huge center to my home. And so everything that I do, I bring him into all of it. And I can say, because of my own personal journey, that the way that I operate is out of love and compassion for other people, because I've realized that the validation and compassion is honestly one of the things that helped me heal, because I didn't always understand what I was going through,
Right.
and being able to bring compassion and validation into people's experiences and have empathy for people while they're going through it is honestly one of the things that I feel can impact and heal other people, because every human is looking for the same thing. Like
Right.
we all have these needs that we're looking for, and whether we get them in unhealthy ways or healthy ways, we're all looking to fill some type of void. And that's being seen, heard, known, accepted, a sense of belonging. And we try to get that outside of Jesus sometimes and in external ways. And
Mm-hmm.
it's temporary, it doesn't always provide lasting joy, lasting peace, abundance. We hear so many coaches like me and you, we're always talking about, you have the ability to live in this abundance. But so many times we're looking to create that in ways that are chasing something externally, when really we have everything that we need on the inside. Um, so
Right. So are you able to share some of your story with the viewers?
yeah, I don't mind.
Please.
Um, I have a long history. I won't go into too much detail, but for me, complex trauma, CPTSD, is something that I struggled with for a long time. I didn't even know that that was a part of me. I honestly felt like chronic stress and anxiety and perfectionism, performance-based love, those types of things. I thought that was just a personality trait. I had just accepted it. I thought that that was that was how I was going to live my life, was constantly stressed out, sabotaging. I had a lot of self-doubt, and I had a lot of overcompensating to earn my worth. And that
Hmm.
showed up in ways that people weren't aware of. So the funny thing is, I dealt with all this stuff on the inside, but nobody ever knew about it until I basically self-destructed. I ended up in the ER. I had lost like a lot of weight. I was diagnosed with several mental illnesses, and um, I was having some trouble with some of my personal life. And so I went to therapy to try to figure out what was actually going on. And that's what sent me into a journey of my own, which brought so much self-awareness and grace and compassion into what I was experiencing, which led to the healing. Because for me, I was just beating myself up every time that I would show up a certain way that wasn't what I would consider perfect. I was just struggling with perfectionism and people pleasing, and I didn't have good boundaries. I was unable to say no to people constantly doing things that I didn't want to do, but I would do them anyway. And it was like I was living out of other people's value system instead of staying in alignment with who I was and what I wanted and what I needed. And it was almost as if like my feelings, my values, my wants and my needs and my thoughts didn't matter, but everybody else's did. They were right and I was wrong. And I would constantly send myself into these shame spirals and overcompensate by trying to strive and earn and do better, which just was a never-ending rabbit trail. It was just a never-ending race that I was never going to win. And ultimately, what led me to healing was whenever I started asking the questions and getting to the root and understanding the why behind things instead of blaming myself. I got to target limited beliefs and false thinking patterns and things that were a part of my nervous system that wasn't necessarily a part of me as a person, like my identity, but it
Hmm.
was there for a reason. And so, like, I had to go back and ask those hard questions, revisit some really hard experiences, a lot of major traumas in my life that I had experienced that I never got to process. I never got to work through. Some happened as a young girl, some happened as an adult. But what I realized was that I was continuing these patterns throughout my whole life and living out of the same cycles because I never got to process, and I was believing lies over myself, and I was adopting other people's labels, other people's opinions of me. I was living out of approval for man, um, and basically like allowed the outside world to control me instead of having control over my own life. Um, and it started as a little girl. I won't go into too much detail just for the sake of protecting like certain individuals, and I don't plan on playing like the blame game or pointing fingers or anything, but I was sexually abused as a child, and I lost my dad at a really young age, and went through I was a child of divorce, multiple divorces, and so at a young age, I just learned uh basically I had a belief system that was wrapped around all these dysfunctional patterns and lack of safety and security. And for me, I had a lot of shame that was wrapped around all of that. And I blamed myself for a lot of it. And that continued in my relationships throughout my marriage as well. I had adopted a lot of fears and insecurities, even to the point of like body dysmorphia, like picking myself apart anytime I'd look in the mirror. And so, yeah, I put a lot of expectations and pressure on myself to be something according to other people's perceptions of what they thought I should be. And this this was a constant pattern in my life until I recognized the why behind it and was able to target the root of the problem.
Yeah. So I want our viewers to understand that the only way that Destiny is able to be here and to do the work that she's doing, which is very similar to you're getting ready to hear some of my story, is because she's doing the work. Okay. Between her and I, there's a bit of age difference, but she's already on a massive healing level. She's already healed what took me many, many years after her age to get to this healing aspect. Because, like Destiny, I also was molested as a child. And because of that molestation, starting at age-ish of around 9, it lasted until I was 16 in this level. And molestation is not just the physical aspect of it, but once that physical aspect of it happens, just, and you've kind of heard Destiny touch on this, there's a verbal part that goes with that, where what she was told and what I was told, and then ultimately, even Destiny's already given light to this, what we tell ourselves because of what they have said to us. And so we have all of this stuff. So after that, you talked about into your adulthood. Well, because I didn't learn a healthy way to date, I stuck myself in some more sexual issue problems as I went through my dating process in my early 20s. Well, actually, it was my teens into my 20s because I got married when I was 19. And then even later, I would stick myself in situations, private, lock the door kind of stuff. Is like, oh my God, how did I get here? You know, why am I here talking with this person kind of deal? And it wasn't anything like a private bedroom or things like that. But I would be like, at one point I was at work and I was working as a bartender and I had to go pick up a keg out of the cooler and I had to roll the keg to where I was taking it. So I picked that up. And then when I went in there, there was this guy that had been sexually harassing me. And it's like he was waiting on me. And as I walked through the door, he just kind of circled around me like that, kissed me real hard, and then sent me into the cooler. And I stood there for, I don't know, maybe 60 seconds or so going, what the hell just happened? You know? And that was over and over for quite a while until I started my healing process. And so I want you guys as the viewers to realize it's about one, seeing that there is an issue and deciding that you are going to change things because you said, Destiny, that you were diagnosed with multiple mental health issues. And do you feel that those mental health issues are now pretty much a thing of your past because you've been working on all of this?
Yes, definitely. And even anxiety. Like I never thought I'd sit here today and tell someone that I don't struggle with anxiety. It was something that I had for the longest time. I was diagnosed with, anxiety, depression, ADHD, and PTSD as well. And I never medicated myself. A lot of people asked me why, and for a second, I wanted to attach spiritual pride to that because I tend to want to heal everything the natural way and bring Jesus alongside of my healing, just allow him to comfort me and guide me and direct me in his love. That was a big thing for me is because of my environment and the places that I surrounded myself in, or the places I put myself in, the people I surrounded myself with. Because of that, I never really got to know what the love of Jesus really was. I knew a lot of dysfunction. I knew a lot of chaos and confusion and manipulation and control and a lot of things that I thought were normal wasn't really normal. And if you've lived in an environment like that, then you don't know what is healthy. Your body keeps the score though, and it's kind of like it becomes a part of you. So for me, like I self-sabotaged a lot because I wasn't able to feel safe in my own body. And I still felt like I was in a place, even when I wasn't, I still felt like I was there. And there were a lot of times I'd be triggered and be reminded of a certain thing and feel that very same thing, even though I wasn't actually there. And for a while, it took me a while to understand these triggers and how to regulate and how to remind myself that this isn't happening right now, and how to, go back and heal those places so that it didn't control my whole life for the rest of my life. And learning those healthy boundaries and bringing Jesus alongside of it, because he had boundaries too, which is something I had to learn. Because as a Christian, I operated out of legalism and religion for a while. I had a lot of church hurt too.
Mm.
Because, we're taught to live this selfless life and be forgiving, and we're taught a lot of things, but we don't always bring boundaries into it. We don't always bring self-love into it. We're taught to love others and, to be giving and selfless, but not to the extent to where you lose yourself. And that's what happened to me. And so when I really got to walk alongside Jesus and get to know who he really was, um, that brought so much healing into my life, because his love is patient, he's kind, he's steadfast. He has so much grace and compassion for us, not shame and condemnation. And so many times as people, we get that wrong. Because we're human, we are always going to struggle with humanity. Our flesh is always going to be there, unfortunately. It's just the way that it is. So we're imperfect representations of who Jesus is. And so we're surrounded by that all the time. And so for me, I allowed my inner voice to be people. And so I allowed people to speak into me. And I had so much fear of man. And all of my insecurities and self-doubt was wrapped around what people said and not what God said. And so the more that I got to go on this journey to learn, grace instead of shame, and I got to learn hope instead of doubt, and I got to have this renewed spirit instead of a crushed spirit, and a sound mind instead of one that was a battlefield, and a body that was whole instead of one that was a war zone constantly. Um, I honestly give all the glory to to Jesus, because it was because of that relationship that I had with him and not people. There were so many times in my life throughout this journey it was lonely. I used to surround myself with people all the time. I was a people person, a people pleaser, the yes girl, the doer. I would spread myself thin. And honestly, God took me on a road that was lonely. And that's when the healing started to happen. I didn't like it at first. I blamed myself a lot. I had a lot of negative self-talk. I spiraled even more out of control there for a while, because I was so used to my worth and my identity being attached to the things that I did
Mhm.
for others, for work related stuff, accomplishments, climbing ladders. And for the first time in my life, my identity wasn't attached to what I did, but it was attached to who I was. And I remember one of the biggest turning points in my life. I was in my closet, and it was after my divorce. And I was crying out to God, and I was like, I don't have anything. And I feel like I'm nobody. And it was a little dramatic. But I remember him whispering in my ear that, you're worthy because of who you are. You're a child of God. And that's not ever going to change. And so it was that moment that I realized that that was the foundation that I had been missing, that I wasn't, that I didn't belong to anyone else, and nobody owned me. And even though, like, my body, my mind, everything showed up, like all the things that happened to me, it was that point to where it was like, okay, I can choose to stay stuck and live in this mind and body and spirit that is of the past, or I can put on my new name that he gave me, and that the new way of living. And it wasn't an instant thing like a lot of Christian people will make you feel like it's just like this instant overnight fix. It's not. For me, it wasn't anyway. I'm sure God can do anything, and all things are possible with him. But for me, it wasn't an instant fix. It was rewiring my brain, renewing my mind, like reminding myself of the lies that controlled me that wasn't true. There were times that I had to like put sticky notes on my mirror and in my car, and I would wake up every day and quote, God did not give me a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. And there were different things like, bring all your heavy burdens unto me, and I will give you rest. And it, it was it was a it was a process. It wasn't something that, and it still is a process. Like I'm still being perfected up. Like I'm not, perfect, and we never will be. And I had to learn that because of our own humanity, that that's why Jesus died in the first place. And if he, it would have been done in vain if he wouldn't have.
Well,
Like,
and for our viewers to understand, some of us are Christians, some of us have a different path that we walk on. I left the traditional Christian church many years ago because of sexual. I was forced to have sex with one of the boys in the church, and then his family decided that they were basically going to verbally molest my family. And so that, and along with some other things, I left the traditional Christian church, and exactly what you're talking about, Destiny, is exactly what I've experienced.
mhm.
My healing is all due to my spiritual path. It doesn't matter what spiritual path that you go, it's hunting for God in how we each see God. And many people I work with Father Raphael. He's one of the ones, and we're going to get into my story in just a little bit. But as I've gone through my healing over the last year, I have worked alongside Father Raphael from the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church, which is a church that I probably know more about than any one church of all the churches, and I'm not Catholic, but because the Catholic Church was so prominent in my childhood, it's just been a place of home for me to be able to talk to the Father and to be able to talk about my, basically the confessing, so the talking, which is kind of what you, as the coach, you're the person we go to talk to about these issues. And I just did a talk on porn addiction for the Mormon men. And so talk about a big taboo in that church. And in other religious circles, it's a huge taboo to have those types of things. But the reality is, we have to look for God however we see God. And we have to reach out and we have to ask for that help. Because I really love the part where you said, take all of the burdens and take them away. That's the same that I did. It's the same that any of us can do. We just need to reach out and we need to ask for that help. And so the story that, I've just talked about the molestation and stuff, but what Dustin and I just talked about just prior to coming on here was that between yesterday and today is a year since my husband's death. So yesterday was my birthday, and that was the day I had to put him on life support. He was brain dead, but I needed for his body to survive one more day. They didn't think it was going to survive long enough for his kids to get there, but it did. But all that was the show, because his soul had left between the 29th and the 30th right there. And when his body crashed, I had to call a crash cart in. I wanted them to save him. And then I did really well with all of that. I have medical background. They, of course, removed me, because anybody that's ever seen or been around it, it's not a pleasant sight to have your loved one go through that. So after they were able to put him on life support, I said, we're putting a DNR in place. I can't do this. I can't do this again. He was already gone. There'd be no way that we could have saved him at all. So we put him on the life support, and it wasn't the life support that was keeping him alive, Destiny. It was the drugs they had him on that was helping his body be moved by the breathing apparatus when they have that on him. And of course, they weren't feeding him because there was no use to feed his body. So all they did is just put drugs through the blood system to try and keep his heart beating long enough and to get his lungs to move through there, to keep his heart just alive long enough for his kids to get there a year ago today. And somewhere around, I don't know, 3 or 4 o'clock, I don't even remember, was when everyone said pull the plug, and we all stood around him. So Destiny is going to kind of talk me through some of the work that she does. And that way you guys get to see a little bit. You've got to hear some of her story, and you're going to get to see a little bit about the work that she actually does.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to point out the fact that you were talking about how you just have to, how you were talking about talking it out.
Mhm.
And because that's like one of the biggest steps to healing that a lot of people don't understand. And because these lies that are in our mind that we're believing, they become a part of us because we don't talk about it. And we don't create a safe place for people to simply exist with imperfections and flaws, and giving people permission to be human. It's so needed. Um, we preach kindness, we preach all these things, but we live in such a busy world that nobody takes the time to create the space. And whenever you do create the space for people, a lot of times you get shame, you get judgment, you get unwanted advice in a time that you really just need to be heard, in a time that you really just needed to be supported. And, I noticed that in my own journey. I was affected a lot by that. And so the way that I show up whenever I do sessions, it's really client led. It's wherever the person wants to take us, that's kind of where we go. And I allow the Holy Spirit to work in those situations. It's different for every single person. Some people want advice, some people want self awareness, some people want knowledge, some people just want to be heard, some people want to grieve, some people want to feel emotions that they never got to feel before so that they can release and let go and actually give themselves permission to be small in a world that makes us feel like we have to be big and strong all the time. For me, I had so much pressure and on my shoulders to put this mask on every single day and wear a smile, and nobody knew what was actually underneath of that, underneath the surface. And for the first time, when I actually let people know, I lost a lot of people. And, at that point, I was taught that it wasn't safe to verbalize,
Mhm.
feelings. Like it wasn't okay or safe to let the mask down and just be real. I was taught real quickly that people want the perfected destiny and not the real authentic destiny, even though I craved to be authentic and I just wanted to be me. And so
Mhm.
for me, that's really what I try to do in this space, is to provide just a safe place for people to unravel and be whatever they want to be, experience whatever they want to experience without judgment, without shame. And if there's a lie that someone's believing within their healing journey, I'm not going to let them stay stuck there. That's something big for me, is calling people up out of the shame, calling people up out of, you know, wherever it is that they are stuck in, that's keeping them from peace, from identity, from freedom, and especially if it's an identity issue. Now, if it's just grieving, that I've realized there's 5 steps to grief, and they're all so very important. And it's so important to just let that flow. When it comes to grief, it takes a long time to heal. It comes in 5 different stages. It's not linear. Sometimes we feel like we're on a mountaintop, and then one day we'll be in a valley. But the biggest thing is giving ourselves permission to be there and not beat
Yeah.
ourselves up for not being somewhere that we're not. Like, we try to speed up our healing process. We try to, be somewhere that we're not. And,
Right.
God, He will meet us where we're at. And
That is a true statement. I've seen that happen so much. In the work that I've done, I always keep this open with spirit, because just like you were saying, spirit is the one who guides us. And the client, yeah, we're following them down their rabbit hole, but the questions and the inquisitive mindset comes from our connection with spirit. And in the case with you talking about the 5 stages of grief, I kind of got scolded here the other day by my RTT therapist, because she's like, that you are a soul having a human experience, right? And I'm like, yes. She says, but you're not having the human experience. You're trying to take this down the soulful side. And I'm like, because this feels better. You
Mhm.
know, I like being in the state of soul. I like being in the place with spirit and allowing that, because here for the last 2 weeks prior to last Thursday, um, I felt like I was sticking a square peg in a round hole for 2 weeks. I couldn't get it forced in there. I felt like the old me, you know, you're talking about the PTSD aspects. I just felt like the old me used to. And then I woke up last Thursday and I went, huh, I feel normal. I feel the new normal. I feel the spirit. The Holy Spirit is here. I feel this. It's something that was super warm and just pleasant. Like I could breathe again for the first time in a couple of weeks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's that peace that surpasses all understanding, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like just like you, like whenever you are wrestling, with the spirit, with the flesh, a lot of people don't understand how we operate as a threefold being. Like we're mind, body, spirit. And, all those need to be in alignment, but there's so many times that they're not. Like we can think a thought that doesn't align with the truth, and before you know it, our whole entire body is feeling an emotion that is in alignment with that negative thought. So it starts with a thought, but then it doesn't end there, and then we'll spiral because we don't catch it and we don't renew our mind and we don't catch it before it's too late. And then we shame ourselves for allowing ourselves to be somewhere that we don't want to be. Um, but we are a threefold being, and we become more in alignment with the truth and with the being spirit led over time. Um, and so for me, I had to learn how to bring grace and compassion into those moments, to give myself permission to feel, and then ask the questions, what is it that I'm feeling right now? What is it that I'm thinking right now? Why am I thinking this? Is this happening right now, or is this something that happened, you know, years ago? And what do I have control over? A lot of times when we are in those moments, we try to control something we don't have control over. And that's whenever we spiral, is because we're trying to control something that, we can't control. And
Right.
but I did have to learn that we have control over our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions, and we do have the ability to control those things. But so many times they feel out of control. But we are capable, like we're capable of controlling them. But it's definitely hard, especially when it feels so real to you in the moment. And those moments when I would spiral, whenever I didn't feel in control, those were the times that I really had to lean in on God, and allow the Holy Spirit to come in and comfort me. And so many times I wanted to fix it in a moment that God wanted to comfort me. And God isn't just a God that just you know operates out of understanding. A lot of times we try to do everything logically, and we try to fix it with our own flesh, and we try to just get things to feel normal again. and
Well, that's because, I mean, because it doesn't feel good for us to be wherever we're at, right? And that was the thing for these last 2 weeks. I couldn't find my path.
Mhm.
I felt off, and so I would try to control this. And so I did give myself grace for extra sleep, because that seemed to be what made me feel the best, is if I would have an extra hour of sleep in the morning. So I would leave my workout out, or in a couple of cases, I had to leave prayer out and bring it in towards the end of the day as opposed to my beginning of the day, because I just couldn't fit everything into my morning. And you're right, we try so hard. I mean, through all my training and stuff, one of the things that analytical people do when they go through the grief and stuff is they start reading books. They read the books. How can I fix me? How can I fix me? How can I fix me? Or they go to therapist, fix me, fix me. Or they take in my case, I was drinking too much alcohol. Fix me, fix me. You
Yep.
know, we hunt for a drug. We hunt for whatever's going to fix me because we're we feel out of control. We feel off center. That's the best way for me to put it for myself. I felt off center. So
Yeah.
in the course, when you start with everybody, Destiny, do you have a series of questions that you start? How do you start with your clients?
Well, for me, honestly, I let the client, like I let whoever I'm talking to, I let them just do whatever they want to do. I know it sounds cliche. So far it's worked for me though. I don't try to put it in a box. I don't limit it. Um, I allow them to go wherever they want to go. And sometimes they go 5,000 different places in 1 hour. Sometimes we stay on one major topic for a long time. And, every week, they'll bring the same story back over and over and over again. And sometimes they don't get breakthrough, but then sometimes they do. It just depends on when they're ready to let go. What I've noticed is we hold ourselves in a prison. We have the ability to create love and peace and live in an abundance of joy. Like we have that ability, but we're the ones that hold ourselves in a prison. And it's because we're not ready to let go. And there's so many things that we hold on to, so many things that, we cling to. And God can only work with us at the ability, at the extent that we're willing to work with Him. That's something I've noticed. A lot of times in my own journey, I heard this story, and I'll say it real quick, but there's a story of like somebody drowning in the water, and you've probably heard this before, and they're hollering out for God to save them. They're like, "Save me, God, I'm drowning." And then there's a boat that comes and asks if they want to be saved, and they're like, "No, it's fine. Like I'm praying to God. God's going to save me. He's got me." And then the boat goes by, and then another boat comes asking if the person needs to be saved, and they're like, "No, God's got me." And the whole time he's like, "Why didn't you save me, God?" And he's like, "Well, I tried. I sent several boats, and you didn't take the boat." And so for me, I feel like sometimes God's wanting to rescue us out of certain situations that we keep ourselves in, or God's wanting to heal us, but we're not in letting Him because we don't believe we're worthy of it, or we're holding on to unforgiveness or bitterness, or things that are hindering us from our peace and from our freedom. So that's really why I let the client lead it, is because there's no way for me to know like how to lead it without just hearing their story. So that's
Right.
what I do. I just create the space for them to just unravel, because they may have to come back to that same pain point 50,000 times. And that some friends and family members don't allow that person to repeat that same thing over and over again without telling them to get over it. They're like,
Right.
be
Right.
over this by now. And that just creates more shame. That
Hmm.
creates, it's not helpful.
Hmm.
Um, so
So, so Destiny, do you work just one-on-one? Is that the only way that you work with your clients right now?
as of now, I do one-on-one, but
Good.
I'm also in the process of creating a weekend retreat. And I would like to make this a thing, like a quarterly thing or a annually thing. I haven't quite made up my mind yet, but I definitely want it to become something that I offer for not just healing, but also for burnout. I'm a nurse as well. I forgot to mention that, but I work in healthcare, and I've noticed how stress management and burnout has really impacted the healthcare community. So a lot of the things that I do with my trauma recovery clients can really help those that are dealing with stress and burnout. And that's ultimately led me to wanting to do these healing retreats and retreats for like the healthcare community. So I plan
Hmm.
on doing more, but as of right now, I'm just doing one-on-one. But I do plan on doing some group coaching and some retreats as well.
Good, good. So as we start to come to the end right now, I know that all of your information will be in the show notes below the show. But how can people get a hold of you and set up an appointment, a time to talk with you?
I do have a Calendly app, which will be linked below. And I also do have a email account. It's just coachdestinyrunyon@gmail.com. And I have a website, soundmindcoaching.com. I also have several social media pages like Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of those things as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Good places for people to find you. So for our viewers, so I am a certified divorce coach. That means that I'm trained in the complexities of divorce. I also found myself in an abusive relationship in my marriage and ended up with broken bones. My father was shot at and then driven over with a dually pickup truck. And my late husband was pretty much so gone through torture during his marriage. So not only do I understand through my textbook training, I also understand because I've been there, done that. So you can find me or reach me by emailing me at coachtinalyn@gmail.com. That's CoachTinaLynn@gmail. My website is divorcecoachspecialist.com. You can find me on social media, Facebook under Tina Lynn Huggins, Huggins, LinkedIn under Tina Huggins, Instagram under Divorce Coach Tina Lynn, TikTok under Divorce Tina. And so one of the things that's super important is to give a last bit of information for our viewers, something that can help them, Destiny.
The biggest takeaway that I would say is that, like, we all have everything that we need inside of us. It's just unlocking it. And so many times, like I said, there's false beliefs, there's lies that we're believing, and it's about ourselves. It's about our identity, really. And by going on this journey, it's an identity formation. It's getting rooted in who God has always created us to be. But we're believing somebody else's voice. We're believing in negative self-talk up over ourselves. It could be comparison. It could be a wound that hasn't been healed. It could be trauma that hasn't been processed through. But whatever it is that caused it, it's not so much about what happened to us anymore, but it's because it's not what happened to us, it's what happened inside of us as a result of what happened to us. And so many times we focus on the event that took place instead of what happened inside of us at the moment of the event, because the event is out of our control. But what happened inside of us is something that we actually have control over. But we have to, we have to do the identity work so that we can believe in ourselves enough to tackle those things that have always been a part of us. Because if we are still living in self-hatred or self-doubt or blame or shame or pain, then we're going to be in like a victim mentality. And we're not going to feel like we are strong enough, or we're going to be trapped in fear and insecurity. We're not going to feel bold and courageous, and we're not going to feel like we have the ability or that we're capable of. Well, something for me is, as humans, we tend to make excuses, we'll rationalize, we'll justify, we'll do all these things to keep us from doing what we need to do and take the steps that we need to take to break free. But I like to not make that a shame thing, but rather an awareness thing, because there's a reason behind that too. And instead of shaming ourselves for why we excuse or justify or rationalize, we can bring understanding and compassion to that so that we can, break free. So that would be what I would leave with everyone is, let's not focus on so much about the past or what happened, but rather what happened inside of us so that we can target that and actually become empowered.
Very good. So, and my advice is that one, we need to reach out and ask for help because, like Destiny has talked about, we have to talk about it. It's the story, right? In the case with Destiny saying it's what happened inside of us. So, in natural health, those memories, those events can be trapped inside our physical body, in a muscle, in a tendon, in ligaments. For instance, if you were in a car accident and you were holding on to the steering wheel real tight, you'll probably hold some of that in your shoulders because your muscles were so tight during the process. By talking about it, you're helping to move that along, and then you need some physical movement through that. So in the case with walking or, getting massage done and going through the process of talking about it on a regular basis, get it so that it's no longer locked inside of your body. So reaching out and asking for help, that's the advice that I recommend here. If it's not Destiny, reach out to somebody that can help you as you walk through this path, especially to get away from the pain that is being held inside the body. We've got to get away from that and loosen it up so that it can be released. So myself and others who've gone through divorce and difficult situations, we reach a level that we think the only way out is through suicide. Please stop. Okay, reach out to the suicide prevention hotline at 988. And if you're in the Netherlands, that number is 113. Reach out, ask for help right then. Get that help so that you are not alone at that moment. You can also, if you're in a situation where you need the police there because of a domestic violence situation, call 911 here. In the UK, it's 999. In the Netherlands, it's 112. Get the police there and press charges. Once you've pressed charges, that's your key out of that abuse. Keep those charges pressed. Do not drop those charges. Many times, once the charges are dropped, the abuse that happened prior to the charges is much worse once the charges are dropped. Don't drop the charges. Follow suit. Get out of the relationship. Get to a safe location. Okay. If you are dealing or know somebody dealing with domestic violence, call the domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233. That number again is 800-799-7233. And please like, comment, and share so that this can help others. Thank you so much for joining me today, Destiny.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. I enjoyed it. And
Well, and thanks so much. And maybe we'll have you on the show in the future.